Okay, here's your Learning Target 4 retake video. Learning Target 4 is explain how the different pieces of a slope-intercept equation are evident in a dataset, table, or graph. So here is the problem from your test. Again, there were two problems. The one on the left was a certain investment is worth $1,300 but is losing $2.58 on average each day. Write an equation for the value of the investment if it continues to lose value at this rate. So our expression then would be 1,300 minus 2.58x. Okay, because we start, the current investment worth is $1,300. Each day it loses $2.58 in value. So here's our expression if it continues to lose value at this same rate. So what is the slope for this situation? The slope then would be our negative $2.58. And how did you know it was the slope? This is the slope because we can think of this as our rate of change. We can also think of this as being what is happening each time. If we were going to think of this in terms of a recursive routine, this would be like our rule. Okay? So each day it loses this much, and this is our starting value. So what is our y-intercept for this situation? That would be like our starting value. So that's our 1,300. That's how much it's currently worth. How did I know it was the y-intercept? This is the beginning value. So before this investment starts losing, it's $2.58 each day. So at 0 days, the beginning value is 1,300. Okay. Here was the next part of this learning target. What is the slope for this situation from this table? And we can tell that by just looking at the changes in y and x. So from this row of the table to the second row of the table, it changes, goes down by 4, and x increases by 1. That same thing happens for the next two rows. So again, the y decreases by 4, the x increases by 1. So what is the slope for this situation? The slope would be -4. And how did you know it was the slope? It's the rate of change. So it's how much y changes as x changes or increases by 1. Okay, the next part says what is the y-intercept for this situation? You can find the y-intercept just by looking at when x is 0. So when x is 0, y is 3. And so that's why we know it's our y-intercept. So the next part, we look at this graph, and we have to determine the slope for this graph as well as the y-intercept. I'm going to start with the y-intercept this time. So where does this cross the y-axis? Crosses the y-axis down at -3. So -3 is our y-intercept. And how did we know? Because that is where the line crosses the y-axis at -3. Okay. To find the slope from this point what I'm going to do to find the slope is pick out another point on this line. So I'm going to pick out this one. Or this one. Actually, let's go with this one. So I'm going to pick that point, draw this in. And if we remember slope as the rise over the run, we can see here that we have a rise of 2 over a run, or a horizontal change, of 1. So our slope is 2 over 1, or just 2. Okay, and how did I know it was the slope? The rise is 2, the run is 1, so 2 over 1 equals 2. All right. So here are a few practice problems. Here's one. Why don't you go ahead and pause the video, work on this practice problem, and unpause when you're ready to go over the solution. Okay, so you should be done with working through this one. So let's check your answer. So it says a failing business is currently worth $42,000. Currently worth $42,000. Each year it loses $7,500 in value. So this is our expression to model this failing business. Starts at $42,000, loses $7,500 each year. So what is the slope for this situation? Our slope would be negative $7,500. How did you know this is the slope? Because this is how much value the business loses each year. So it's the rate of change for our business. Our y-intercept then is 42,000. How did you know it was the y-intercept? It's our beginning value. Before it's been a year and we've lost that 7,500. Okay. Here are a couple more practice problems. So again, we need to do it from a table and a graph. So go ahead and pause, do those two, and then unpause when you're ready for the solution. So for this first one, what is the slope? We'll look at the change in x and the change in y. The change in y goes down 5, down 5, down 5, from 9 to 4, 4 to negative 1, negative 1 to negative 6. And our x's increase by 1. So what is our slope then? We look at the change in y over change in x, and we get a slope of negative 5. How did you know it was the slope? We looked at our change in y over the change in x. This is also the same thing as rise over run. I'm just writing it in a different way. And we already found change in y is negative 5. Change in x is 1. So our change in y over change in x is negative 5, and that was our slope. The y-intercept then is found just by looking at when x is 0. So the y value when x is 0 is 4. Okay, so the y value when x equals 0 is 4. So that's how we know it's our y-intercept. So then the last one we have to look at is this graph. I'm going to start with the y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, and that is at 4. Then to find the slope, I'm going to pick out this point up here. And remember, we need to find the rise over the run, or the change in y over the change in x. Our rise is going to be 2, and our run is going to be 3. So we rise 2, run 3, and our slope is 2 over 3. And how did we know? Is because we have a rise of 2, a run of 3, so rise over run is 2/3.